Rising subtly from the rolling hills of southern Ohio, the Serpent Mound is one of North America's most enigmatic archaeological sites. Located near Peebles in Adams County, this ancient earthwork stretches across the plateau above the Ohio Brush Creek, forming the sinuous body of a snake more than a quarter-mile long. For centuries, it has inspired awe and speculation. Today, it stands not only as a monumental achievement of indigenous engineering, but also as a symbol of the deep cultural and spiritual traditions of the Native Americans who lived in the Ohio Valley long before European arrival. Hello, everyone. Giant Stonehead here. If you enjoy obscure science and forgotten history, please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay till the end for the dad joke of the week. Now, let's slither into the details of the Serpent Mound. The Serpent Mound is the largest known effigy mound in the world. An effigy mound is a type of earthwork that is shaped to resemble animals or symbolic figures. It snakes roughly 1,300 feet across the Ohio countryside and stands around 3 feet tall. The mound depicts a snake with a coiled tail and an open mouth. The head appears to be swallowing an oval-shaped object, usually interpreted as an egg. The scale and precision of the mound are remarkable. Constructed from layers of earth, clay, and ash, the structure required a coordinated labor force and careful planning. Creators shaped the land itself into a symbolic form that is best appreciated from above, suggesting that they had a sophisticated understanding of landscape and perspective. Much like the moai of Easter Island, the Serpent Mound was made without the benefit of metal tools, wheels, or draft animals. It is believed that workers carried soil by the basketful to the construction site, showing that the culture who produced this remarkable effigy were highly organized and skilled with the materials available to them. Unlike many other Native American mounds in the Midwest, the Serpent Mound does not contain burials within its structure. Its absence fueled speculation about its purpose, distinguishing it from nearby conical burial mounds associated with earlier cultures. One of the most enduring mysteries of the Serpent Mound is its origin. Archaeologists have debated for more than a century about who constructed it and when. Early researchers attribute the mound to the Adena culture, group that flourished in the Ohio Valley between roughly 800 BCE and 100 CE. The theory is based largely on the presence of the nearby Adena burial mounds, one of which is pictured here. However, no definitive artifacts were found within the serpent itself to confirm this. In the late 20th century, radiocarbon dating suggested a much later construction date, around 900 years ago, indicating that the four ancient culture who lived in the region between roughly 1000 CE and 1500 CE may have built the mound. Additional studies have since reopened the debate, with some evidence pointing back to an earlier Adena origin around 300 BCE. This uncertainty reflects a broader challenge in archaeology, interpreting sites that lack written records. It is possible the Serpent Mound may have been built in stages reused by multiple cultures over centuries. Rather than the product of a single group, the effigy could have been molded and shaped by multiple hands over the centuries. While we may not understand its origins, the Serpent Mound is widely understood as a ceremonial or spiritual site. Indigenous cultures of the Ohio Valley created numerous earthworks, often with astronomical alignments relating to natural features. The serpent itself is a powerful symbol in many Native American traditions, often associated with the water, the underworld, fertility, and renewal. Some scholars suggest the mound represents the great serpent, a mythological being connected to cycles of life and death. The mound's placement adds to its significance. It sits atop a plateau within an ancient meteor impact structure known as the Serpent Mound crater, shown in the image on this slide. This unusual geological formation may have influenced the choice of location, lending this site a sense of spiritual importance. Nearby, several burial mounds and evidence of settlements indicate that the area was used repeatedly over the centuries. These features suggest that this site was part of a broader ceremonial landscape rather than an isolated monument. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Serpent Mound is its possible connection to astronomy. Researchers have proposed that the curves of the serpent, along with the lunar and solar events such as solstices and equinoxes. For example, the head of the serpent is oriented toward the setting sun of the summer solstice, while the other points along the body may correspond to lunar cycles. These alignments suggest that the mound could have functioned as a kind of calendar that helped its builders track seasonal changes. Interpretations go further, proposing that the shape of the mound corresponds to the constellation Draco, with specific stars aligning along key points along the serpent's body. While these theories remain debated, they highlight the sophisticated observational knowledge of the people who created the Serpent Mound. Although indigenous peoples have long known of the Serpent Mound, it was first documented by European Americans in the late 18th century. In 1848, Ephraim Squire and Edwin Davis published detailed surveys of the site. In the 1880s, a Harvard archaeologist named Frederick Ward Putnam conducted the first systematic excavations. You might have called his work groundbreaking. While his work helped preserve the mound, it also reflected on the practices of the time, including the removal of human remains from nearby burial sites, an issue that continues to shape discussions about archaeological ethics and indigenous rights. By the early 20th century, preservation efforts gained momentum. Local advocates purchased the land and protected it from development. And in 1919, it became one of the first archaeological sites in the United States preserved as a public park. Today, the site is managed by the Ohio History Connection and is designated a National Historic Landmark. It has also been nominated for inclusion in the UNESCO World Heritage List. The true purpose of the Serpent Mound remains unknown, and ambiguity is part of its enduring fascination. Some scholars interpret it as a cosmological symbol representing the interplay of celestial forces. Others see it as a territorial marker, gathering place, or a monument commemorating a significant event, perhaps a symbolic representation of the meteor that created the crater near the Effigy. What is clear is that the mound served some important purpose. Scale, form, and placement indicate deliberate design and deep cultural meaning. Gaseous artifacts within the mound itself suggest that its significance lay in its very presence on the land. Modern perspectives increasingly emphasize the importance of indigenous knowledge in interpreting the site, as they should. For Native American communities, the Serpent Mound is not merely an archaeological curiosity, but a sacred place connected to ancestral traditions and spiritual beliefs. Today, visitors to the Serpent Mound can walk along viewing paths and observation towers, gaining a sense of the monument's scale and setting. The surrounding preserve includes forests, meadows, and additional archaeological features, offering a glimpse into the environment that shaped its creation. The site continues to be a focus of research, with new technologies and ground-penetrating radar and advanced dating techniques providing fresh insights. At the same time, it remains a place for reflection, where past and present intersect. The Serpent Mound endures because it resists easy explanation. It invites questions rather than providing answers, challenging us to consider the complexity of the cultures that built it. In doing so, it reminds us that the history of North America rather, extends far beyond any written records embedded in the land itself. Serpent Mound of Peebles is one of the most extraordinary archaeological sites in the United States. Yours truly has visited the Serpent Mound. It's been about 10 years, so my memories of it maybe aren't the clearest, but I really found it a fascinating site. It was interesting to walk alongside of it, and it comes kind of like about waist high, but to walk along it and just think about, because it's not the easiest terrain out there. It's pretty hilly, and it definitely would have been more rugged, more forested back when this thing was being made, because you figure where it was located, they probably had to clear it. I mean, it might have been cleared before because there were people living around there and they were making mounds in that area, but it wasn't, you didn't have nice roads to walk on. You had whatever deer trails and whatever trails that they forged themselves through the woods. So they had to take all these materials by hand and just manhandle them into place. And they built this structure that, it takes a little bit of time to walk around, but that's with a modern path. It's about, yeah, like I said, about 3 feet tall. And it is pretty intricate, like to see it at ground level. And then you walk and you can, as you saw on the last slide, you can climb on a watchtower and look at it and get a pretty good idea of what the place looks like and kind of the totality of it. And I I kind of was going to I was going to put this into the script, but I kind of decided to throw it in here. But before anybody comes in and says, "Oh, aliens made it because these people wouldn't have known what it looked like from above, and so it was made for people that were in the sky." Well, if we can build a a watchtower to look over top of it, I'm sure they would have done the same thing. That was probably how they directed the construction. They probably, there's no evidence for this, but it's just common sense. They probably would have had a tower or something, and they could have had whoever was leading the effort on top look at it and tell everybody where to go. That's just common sense. But common sense kind of goes out the window when you start talking about ancient structures and people start making History Channel documentaries about them. But that's a rant for another video. Maybe that'll be a video in itself. But anyway, I have visited the site. I found it really interesting. I think anybody who's in the area should give it a look. There is a sense of ancientness to it, for lack of a better word. It has its own kind of feeling to it that I've never really felt because, like, most places around Ohio and a lot of places in the United States are relatively recent. The oldest European structures are down in St. Augustine, and they're maybe 300 some years old. But this is something that's between 1,000 to 2,000 years old. That's getting to, what you come across in Europe in the old world. It's ancient in a way a lot of things aren't. And if you haven't really traveled to the old world or some of the older parts of the United States where we know Native American structures and villages and things that are older, you might not have that sense of perspective. But there is kind of like that sense of age to the site and sense of kind of reverence to it. And I did run across this kind of hippie lady who commented on that. She was meditating and, feeling the vibes of the place. And of course, dummy me, I stumble up on her and I was walking beside her and I stumbled and startled out of her meditation. But we kind of discussed it, and that was kind of how what she felt about the place. And I kind of agree, although I'm not, it's a little bit too woo-woo for me, but I did find it interesting that it does have a feeling to it. So, well worth visiting, but I'm gonna stop rambling. I'm gonna tell you the dad joke of the week and we'll close this out. So what you've been waiting for, the dad joke of the week. Previous girlfriend of mine was an archaeologist. She broke up with me because she wasn't over her ex. I guess she just couldn't quit digging up the past. True story, by the way. But till next time, let me know if you like this kind of more casual outro. I've been thinking about changing up my videos a little bit. Reading off of a script is fine, but I want something a little loosey-gooseier, but also a little more structured than my first video. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, if you're ever around Peebles, Ohio, in the Chillicothe area, south of Columbus, go take a look at the Serpent Mound. And until next time, thanks so much for watching.